Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Mike Okwoche. In 2012, an unprecedented political crisis began in Mali after a coup d'etat that saw the ouster of President Amadou Toumani. Now, this was followed by global condemnation, regional sanctions, and the loss of the northern part of the country to Tuareg forces. Now, some went on to describe the coup as a spectacular own goal, which saw the intervention of French-led troops and African Union forces. It is more than a year now since the crisis ended in Mali, but what should be done to sustain democratic governance in that country? You can share with us on Twitter at TVC Africa Today or send an email to africatoday@tvcnews.tv. We'll take this report on recent political developments in Mali, and Africa Today will continue. Stay with us.
President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, known universally by his initials IBK, was elected on a pledge to unite Mali and is seeking to rebuild the country from the ashes of war against Islamists. He appointed Lee, a leading economist, as Prime Minister in September 2013, as stability was returning to the country that has been divided by political war. The outgoing Prime Minister, Umaru Tamtali, submitted the entire government resignation to President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta on Saturday. According to a presidential statement, no reason was given for the resignation, but the letter was accepted. His replacement, Mara, a political veteran who ran against Keïta in Mali's August presidential election, will be responsible for appointing new ministers.
Ces orientations sont de 6 ordres. En premier lieu, la restauration et le renforcement de nos institutions. Vous n'avez pas de pays sans institutions. Vous n'avez pas de république sans institutions. Renforcer la gouvernance des services publics, améliorer les rapports entre les citoyens et l'État et faire en sorte que notre État puisse être grandement restauré sur l'ensemble de notre territoire. Nous allons animer le gouvernement avec l'état d'esprit d'intégrité absolue de ses membres. Nous ne pouvons plus nous permettre dans notre pays que la responsabilité publique soit considérée comme un ascenseur socio-économique.
Right, now, according to the 2012 Afrobarometer survey, 75% of adults in Mali were worried about that the country was moving in the wrong direction. But a follow-up survey now reveals a newfound hope in the future. Joining us to look at sustaining democracy in Mali, we have Larry Suraj, chairperson of the Civil Society Network Against Corruption in Nigeria. You're welcome to Africa Today.
Nice meeting you
You're
again.
welcome.
Yeah.
All right, and later on, we'll be linking up on phone with Sylvain Touati, an associate fellow at the French Institute of International Relations. He'll be joining us from Qatar. Now, let's take it this way. How would you assess from the crisis and violence that took place in Mali to the election and after the election until now? How would you assess the socio-economic development of Mali?
In practical terms, you would say there's actually nothing happening yet in terms of concrete substance for the people that are, for the Malians generally. And that would also take you to the kind of livelihood under which the Malians are predominantly sustaining their livelihood. And that takes you to majorly, especially like in the north, where it is majorly subsistence farming. Unfortunately, with the conflict and with the crisis, there were a lot of migrations, there were a lot of emigrations, and then there was also a lot of destruction of crops. So inevitably, it takes quite a while before even farmers who want to start a new farming process would have to plant the seedlings, and it will have to grow, and it will go to harvest period, and then you will need to go and sell those that need to be sold, and then the ones that need to be consumed. But when you want to look at it, like I said, theoretically, and that is what you saw from the survey, is the fact that there are high hopes, the projections are higher, and the IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde just said in February that contrary to an earlier projection of about 3.5 growth, they can see 4.4 now, you know, with the trend at which things are going. So, but looking at it critically, there are high hopes with the situation of things on ground, but then it takes quite a while and some time before it translates into tangibles for the people on the ground.
It's okay, but what do you think are responsible for this seeming confidence that people are having in the system gradually from that time until now?
Oh yeah. I mean, because one of the things that is very crucial, especially in the African system, is the fact that people had high or false ideas and hopes about separation, and that you bring down to even the North and South Sudan. You know, there was the whole expectation that once South Sudan breaks away from Northern Sudan, they are already in El Dorado, but that is contrary to what you have now. There's even more conflict in South Sudan than you have in the Northern Sudan. The same thing goes to Eritrea and from Ethiopia. You know, after the breakaway of Eritrea, you see a complete different situation from what it used to be. And it's also the threat that you see in Nigeria. And I hope that many people who are clamoring for separation, for whatever, would go and borrow experiences from what you have in several other African countries. So the reality has dawned on everybody. They've actually tasted the war. They've seen the implication of it. And that was what Nigeria actually came out from after the 1967-1970 civil war in Nigeria. You know, after the civil war, there was practically no victor, no vanquished. So there was that basic reality of life on everybody, on the need to actually not go back to that part where they just came out from. So obviously that is what you can see with the Malians, and then also the realization that the international community and everybody are on hand to offer some measure of assistance.
Okay. Now, joining us online, we have Sylvain Twati, an associate fellow at the French Institute of International Relations in Qatar. Now, Twati, thanks for joining us on Africa Today. Now, from the latest survey in Mali, citizens have expressed optimism at the way they are being governed. But how satisfied are you with democratic governance in that country from your assessment?
Definitely, there have been some improvements in the crisis in 2012 and 2013. The election, the presidential election and general election in 2013 were organized really well. You can see in the Afrobarometer survey that the population was feeling that the polls were very fair and there were no pressure for voting for any parties in particular. So it was a very positive progress, especially when you compare to the election in 2007 and 2002, where there were a lot of doubt about how the election was run. So that definitely was a progression. I think there is a lot of hope in the new government elected of Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. There has been a lot of expectation about it, and I'm afraid, however, that this expectation will probably be deceived and in the coming months, and will can lead to already see some of the issues that we've seen in the previous government happening again under Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta's rule. We see starting of clientelism with the nomination of his son as an MP, and a lot of his family are in high cycle of power, and that is, however, very worrying to notice.
All right. Now, how safe and secure are citizens from armed conflict, especially in the northern part where the Tuaregs are? How would you assess the security in that situation now, or maybe tension, let me say?
What is interesting from this survey is the fact that the population in the north is really asking for more democracy, is really praising the democratic regime. And they've been very happy with how the election were happening and were organized. I think they start to be a little bit also of worrying about where the negotiations are going between the former rebels and the government, and also the return of some of the radical movements. We've seen in the last week some attacks from Ansar Din against MNLA, against the rebels. So we see still some confusion in the north, and even the deployment of French and UN troops have not completely pacified the region. And when we see the conflict in Libya, the issues in Libya, I think the situation won't really improve in the coming months, and that will definitely have an impact on the trust of the citizens towards how the Malian government can bring back peace, and it's not only peace, but I would say economic development. The other guests tonight mentioned the growth, economic growth, and in Mali, and we have to really focus and monitor what's happening in the north, because one of the main factors of the crisis in 2012 and the previous Tuareg rebellion is the fact that it's almost very difficult for governments to develop and develop growth and economic growth in northern Mali, and that is one key factor to monitor by the population, but also by the Malian government and international donors.
All right. From your assessment, the Tuaregs in the north, would you say they're satisfied with the democracy of President Keita and are ready to key in?
I think it's very difficult, because even if his survey show is making the difference between population in northern Mali and southern Mali. You have to keep in mind that even in northern Mali, the Tuareg population is rather limited. We're only talking about 300,000 people in a country of 12 million inhabitants. So it's very difficult from this survey and other poll to distinguish what the Tuareg are thinking about it. We can just notice that the rebels are still there. They're still very divided. We're seeing that the division between the clans, between the different clans of the Tuareg population, is still present. Iyad al-Ghali, who have to remember, created Ansardin because he couldn't take over MNLA. I think there is a lot of personal issues among the population. I think that's very difficult to assess where the Tuareg are sitting on the development of democracy in Mali. The only thing we can notice is every time you have elections.
All right, Sylvain, thank you very much. We'll come back to you again shortly. Thank you. All right, let's come back to studio. Now, some would say it is too early to assess growth and, in fact, tangible growth in Mali. But considering how things have been in the country, would you say it is too early to assess President Keita's government?
Oh, yeah. It will actually be, there are several indications that you want to see in terms of the programs and policies that are being pursued by an average leader, which will give you a very good determinant in terms of what would be the final outcome, and then what that translates into in terms of the lives of the people that are being governed. But 1 year is actually quite early. It is not too early. I mean, it is quite early, but not too early, because it gives you time to see the direction that you want to go. I mean, this is about the time for sacrifices, and then once you see a leader which within 1 year, under these circumstances, who is engaged in some kind of extravagant life, then you would want to say, oh, yeah, you can know what the direction that is going to lead to. But where you can see sacrifices in terms of reducing what is the cost of governance in such a state, and then in terms of paying critical attention to rebuilding the structure and the economy of the country, and then also in terms of reawakening the consciousness of the people towards a new rebirth for the country, and then also ensuring that the whole concept of governance is people-oriented, such that in the shortest period of time, people can see the proceeds of the peace that just been achieved in the country.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to this. Now, indeed, many will not forget the show of sportsmanship when political rival Somali Cisse conceded defeat to President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita after elections last year. Now, all that is history now, with many wondering what it would take to ensure that the dangerous political habits of the past do not resurface. Now, we'll go on a break, and Africa Today will be back. Stay with us. All right, if you are just joining us, this is Africa Today, and we have been looking at sustaining democracy in Mali. In the studio, we have been discussing with Larry Siraj of the Civil Society Network Against Corruption Nigeria. Meanwhile, we still have Sylvain Twati, an associate fellow at the French Institute of International Relations in Qatar. All right, let's come to you straight, Sylvain. Some believe northern Mali remains a region of intercommunal tensions and localized violence that could jeopardize efforts made so far. What can be done to sustain democracy and peace in that region?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of your question.
Okay, I am saying for short that so people are still concerned about the international community, and even locals are still concerned about the tension in the northern part, or likely tension in the northern part of Mali. Now, what can be done to bring lasting peace to the region?
As you know, there's been a French military intervention backed by originally Western African and then UN troops. There've been reports, there've been conflicting reports about what's going on. The French is accused by some part of the Malian population of having a secret deal with some part of the rebels to fight against Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and that French troops were not really helping the Malian army to deploy in the north. And I think one of the first position of Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta when he was elected was to show the presence of the Malian army in the north. And now, I think after a few months of difficulties, I think that the Malian troops are now in northern Mali. But to be honest, they don't have the control of the region. That's for sure. There is a big international push to get on with the negotiation, but as I mentioned previously, it's very difficult to find the right people to speak to within the Tuareg community, and also to keep in mind, and that's something that was always forgotten during this crisis, is the fact that Tuareg are a minority in northern Mali, and you have other parts of the population which were also participating to the rebellion and or fighting the rebellion. So you have a lot of conflict within the northern Malian population between the population around Gao and Tombouctou and some of the rebel groups, and on top of that, you have like international groups such as Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb or Ansar-Din active. So it's very difficult to find a good ground for negotiation, and the situation is very fluid at the moment on the negotiation aspect.
All right, let's talk about institutions in Mali. How would you assess them? Are they in the right direction from the leadership style of the president so far?
What was really impressive, to be honest, is the fact that Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta didn't hesitate, and I think it was also to show its strength, to attack the former junta by supporting the Ministry of Justice when they started to sue Captain Sanogo and his former junta colleagues, and that was a very strong push to show to the population that no one was going to be the law is not going to ignore anyone. And also on the side of Captain Sanogo, there is a lot of pressure within the police, the army, to stop daily corruption. You know, this daily corruption that was annoying most of the citizens, like at police checkpoints, at traffic signal, to get molested by police or army for some money. And I think there would like to be clear instruction from the new government to stop that. And I think it's reflected in the Afrobarometer studies. We see, like, if you look in detail, you see that the population has a better perception of his army and police, and that's a very positive point. We've seen that there is a good support from the government for justice. However, we have to mention that the full state needs to be rebuilt. The justice personnel need to be trained. They need to be supported by the government. They need to also cover the full territory. And it's mentioned in other reports the fact that even if Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta makes very strong point by putting some soldiers in Kidal, the main thing is the most of the state organizations such as justice, health, and
all right, Sylvain Twati, thank you very much. That's how much time can permit us right now. Thank you for your contributions on the show. Thank you. All right, at this time, it could be difficult sometimes, or likely, that foreign investors will be attracted to a country like Mali. But what would it take to attract investors to Mali that will boost the economy?
Very basic ingredients of such, I mean, because every investor is more concerned about the return.
Making profit.
Yeah, so the return of investment is only guaranteed where there's an institutional building of that economy to the extent that it can redress certain grievances either between the government and the business interests or between business interests within the system and then also within the people and the business interests. So that is very crucial. The issue of security is also very fundamental. You know, that is only when you can be ensured that your investment is also secured and guaranteed. Also, the conflict resolution in terms of the law that is also enforced within the system or that is promulgated within the system would also give the kind of direction that the investors will not. I'm not talking about criminal investors. There are quite a number of those ones who don't care about all these basic ingredients, are more concerned about finding a means of subverting even the law to make some crude money within the system. And where they always target are systems and countries like Mali that are just recovering from this kind of situation. Also very crucial and important is about the issue of corruption and transparency in government. Every investor wants to see this happening. And like the last contributor said, you know, one of the things that angered the system and the populace was the issue of corruption. You know, it was becoming too brazen, and then you almost experience it on a daily basis. And this is one thing that needs to actually be completely obliterated from that system. And there must be the direction shown by the leadership that would also encourage the followership to see that this is a new system, this is a new beginning for the people of Mali, and that will also give a measure of guarantee to people from outside, either who wants to do business or who wants to come and assist the system or who even wants to come and defraud the system. So it's very important that many of others are actually.
It's okay. But what kind of support will be needed from organizations like the AU and maybe other international organizations into Mali right now?
It has to be serious capacity and institutional building. The human capacity to take advantage of the opportunities when they're created. It is not just enough for investors to come and then they come with the expatriate and then you would see a huge growing GDP in the country, and then you would have the GNP to actually back that up, or you would have the per capita income to reflect that actually the life of the people there are improving. And that is what you have with Nigeria. We can talk about the huge bogus GDP, but the per capita income of the average Nigerian is completely nothing, because all the capital flight that you have is the expatriates, the MTN and the rest of them. They invest there. They take the money away, either through the staff who work with them or because they have to import as little as the recharge card that is sold to people on the street. So you're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the development that is based on the people of Mali. And then they can see hopes, even if it is not, as at this time, translating into tangible results for them, but they can see the trend that they are moving from the position of poverty to the position of development and then also to the position of sufficiency. And that is very crucial for the people of Mali to guarantee not only the peace that has been achieved so far, but even to consolidate the democratic dispensation that is evolving in the country.
Okay. Now, certainly there are a plethora or a spectrum of issues the president should handle on his table. But if they have to be prioritized, what do you think should be the first for him to really handle and turn the country around?
Institutional building, again, it's very crucial that, you know, the institution is not about building persons. It's to build institutions that can, at every point in time, correct itself. Once you have institutions that are capable, and that is also where the international community would need to assist with this, because it involves a lot of resources, and it is not what you would see the immediate result right now and now. But it's a process that takes a long time. But there must be that institution, political institution, economic institution that will stand the test of time. And with that, consolidation of democracy becomes even very easy, because it becomes a project of everybody. It becomes an institutional thing. And then it becomes very difficult for there to be the like of coup that was experienced last year again in the system.
Is it right? Finally, before I let you go, the Central African Republic had a similar kind of problem Mali had. And then South Sudan is also having similar kind of trouble, as the case may be. But what lessons does the continent have to learn from Mali?
Oh, just like I said earlier, it's important that people don't just want to assume that the neighbor across the street, who is probably not from your ethnic background or religious background, is responsible for your woes. No, you just have to know that either you share part of the blame or someone from your own ethnic or religious background is also a conspirator in terms of what you're looking at from your neighbor who you think is responsible. And once we break it, you don't get it back. Libya is still wrangling with that. They can't get out of it. It is going to be extremely difficult for Libya to recover, because it's not only what you have within the system, is also what was influenced by the external forces. And now people have gone into that kind of conflict with their eyes closed. Now their eyes are opened. It's difficult to beat a retreat.
Okay. All right, Lawrence Wright, thank you very much for coming on Africa Today.
Always my pleasure.
Thank you. And we also thank Sylvain Twati for joining us earlier on from Qatar. Now, although peace and democracy have returned to much of Mali, many remain cautious of prevailing economic conditions and food insecurity. Now, the landlocked West African nation may not be where it ought to be. It is, however, not where it used to be. Now, for Mali and the rest of Africa, sustaining democracy includes learning from the past to create a better continent for future generations. That's our show for today. You can watch episodes of the show on youtube.com/TVC Africa Today. And until we come your way again, I am Mike Okwoche. And always remember, this is Africa. Bye for now.